This video is all about renovating the wooden floor of a boat. One of the most rewarding jobs you can do on a classic teak and holly sole. Our sole was showing signs of wear after 8 years living aboard. There were dents and scratches, staining, and any dampness on the surface was getting through to the wood. The varnish was no longer waterproof. So here I'm getting started on removing all the latches, taking as much outside as possible, and trying to work out the best way to get the old varnish off. I'm doing this at anchor while living aboard. Not ideal, but not impossible with the right varnish. I'm using a good quality random orbital sander here, definitely the best sander for this sort of work, but obviously it makes a lot of dust. Because of the dust, I'm looking for another way to get the varnish off inside, and I'm hoping that a heat gun will work well. Sadly, my battery powered one doesn't. It's very slow going. A good mains powered device would probably do much better. Unfortunately, we're in the Cayman Islands and they will all be 110 volts here, and our boat is 220. I end up with a mixture of using the stripper and a scraper inside. Finishing off with the heat gun and sander. So lots of sanding. I'm sealing each area off one bit at a time. There's louvered bits in the door here, so I just put some brown paper over that. But the dust is irritating my eyes, so I'm gonna treat it like I'm going diving. I'm gonna put my mask on too, because it's very dusty. There we go. There's no avoiding sanding, of course, so you'll have to spend a lot of time protecting things you don't want covered in dust, unless you're in a position where you can move everything off the boat. So a couple of hours of sanding and it's got it down pretty well. There's a couple of bits there where you can sort of, it's not completely bare wood. That's difficult to do with just sanding. I mean, I've been doing this for a couple of hours. I did 40, then 80, then 120 grit on this. And I've cleaned up all the dust over here, but it was really dusty. It creates a lot, but at least I can contain it well in this room. I think with the saloon I will use the chemical stripper on that first to reduce the amount of sanding I have to do. But yeah, I'll wipe it down now, get a wet rag and just go over it, get rid of all the dust, and I'll see a lot better than what the floor looks like once that's sort of wiped over with a wet rag. It does raise the grain slightly. I mean, Teak's pretty good with that. It's hardly at all. It doesn't raise it much at all, but it will get its final sand over just before the finish goes on anyway. And at that point I will have a wipe over with some denatured alcohol on a tack rag. As you can see, I've blocked off as much as I can with this brown paper. We had a massive roll of it. This worked pretty well, but I did try and get as much off with the chemicals before I got the sander out. Okay, so done. Not too dusty. The floor seems to have come up reasonably well. I mean, you don't really tell until you've got the varnish on. I'll wet it actually and just see what this bit looks like once it's wetted. That's not bad. So I've just got to get rid of all this, wipe everything down, get rid of every speck of dust, get ready for varnishing. It's worth doing the prep, so take your time. Okay, so I'm on the final stages now, the cleanup. It does take almost as long as the sanding, this, even with the prep that I did beforehand. You've sort of got to go through and you find, you know, just even in here, I have this little picker thing that I use and just go in between the bits of teak. You'll get little just bits of dust that get stuck in there, this lovely teak staving, but it's difficult to do, and obviously all the louvers and all those sorts of things. But yeah, I'm going to go and finish all that off, and I've got to work out a tactic of doing this because there's quite a few coats of all the different things that I've got to go on. So I'm going to start in the aft heads, work my way through here and out to this door, because you don't want to leave a wet edge, so I can just sort of go up to the edge of there and then restart right up in the forepeak here. Work more. In fact, I won't start there. I'll go in here, do this bit first. So I've taken the loo out. I haven't taken the heads out in the other cabin because obviously I needed one to stay there. So that'll have to be done afterwards. But then I'll do that. Do all of this. Work my way back again. I'm not doing this section now. This will have to be done afterwards. I have to move the table. I couldn't just do that all in one section, but that's okay. Now I'll work my way down through here and out, and outside I'll have all the lift out panels. I can do them out there because I don't want to be trying to sort of do it across the gaps. It's all very a tight fit in here, and you know, you don't want sort of varnish going in that getting all stuck. You want a good edge. So yeah, they'll all be done outside. If you have these lattice panels, then the only way to go is hand sanding. It takes ages. Lastly, the 120 grit on the removable panels. So on the final leg now, it's actually quite good doing the sanding on the back of the boat here, because you're always pointing into the breeze, of course, so any dust is just being taken off the back. I'm not contaminating anything else on the boat back in here. Everything inside now is completely clean and ready. But yeah, it's all looking pretty good. I will just get everything completely finished. You just got to get the dust off everything, and you can see with these, I've gone through all of the varnish, taking everything off, so if I wanted to put a stain on or anything like that, you can. If you've got any varnish still left, it would be patchy if you did that. I mean, I'm not going to do that, I don't need to with this. It's in really good condition. I mean, it's one of the good things about having a boat like a Hans Christian is that this is not laminate. If this was laminate, sometimes now modern boats, they're very, very thin. You'd have to be really careful sanding it down. This is solid, so you know, I can do what I like with this. It'll last forever, and you can just keep going over it and sanding a bit off to refresh it and make it look like new. So first I'll give it a wipe over with tack cloth with some thinners on it, and then it'll have the wood sealer. Then they'll have a few coats of the gloss, and then a coat or two of the satin on top of that. So I'm just having a final wipe over here with the tack cloth before putting on all the different coats. You could, of course, just use the gleam, satin or gloss depending on what you want for everything, thinning the first coats. But if you're doing all this work, then you may as well do it the best way, which is with a couple of coats of the primer to fill the grain and give an excellent base. Then the gloss. I'm using 3 coats of this to give a lovely depth. And then the satin just for the top 2 coats to give the look I want and to make it less slippery. So having the bilges open means that I can just wipe any bits of dust into there. That's pretty good. So that's that done. So now put my hood up and actually start the varnishing. Got this nice suit which came with the Total Boat stuff. It hasn't got any fluff on it, so yeah, I'll do that with the hood up. Hopefully I won't get any hairs anywhere then. Okay, so first coat, that's this, the wood sealer. It's quite thin stuff. I'm going to have a go at rolling it on. You can see it's pretty thin. It doesn't need to be sanded down in between. If you do it within 24 hours, which I certainly will be, it should dry in a couple of hours. So by the time I've gone around everything, hopefully I can put a second coat on straight away if it tacks up well. I mean, it's warm here, it's about 85 degrees, but it's quite humid as well, so that'll stop it a bit. So let's see. I'll be brushing, be roll and tipping the actual varnish, but with this I might just go away with just doing this. We'll see if it leaves an impression. See how it goes on. It actually goes on really easily and very quickly. The large roller is okay, but I do tip off with the brush to knock down the bubbles. They will probably settle, but I think this gives a more even coverage anyway. The missing floor sections give you somewhere to stand, but it's tricky, so it pays to be systematic and have a plan. You can see it better outside. It really is very quick to do, and that's the key to a good varnish. If it goes on quickly with a good finish, it avoids overbrushing, which is the thing that often leads to bad results. I've done this job before with a 2-part varnish, and it was difficult to work with, and the result was poor. It just looked orange peely. This is much better. So that's the last one done. 2 coats. It's the easy stuff. Obviously the first one that goes on quite quickly. Got them strewn all over the deck. It's pretty windy, but apart from that, the weather's not bad because it's not too hot, not too sweaty. You're dripping on it sometimes when you're doing the stuff inside. It's not like it was in Panama. I wouldn't have been able to do it there, and hopefully it won't rain here. But yeah, it's not ideal doing it. Obviously, when you're on the boat, it would be better to do this if you were staying off it. The smell's not too bad down there now, though. I just went down, so it's had 2 coats inside as well, and not too many fumes. But today is the day to put the actual varnish on, so I hope this goes on as easy as the other one. I'm hoping to get 3 coats on today. It says you can do a maximum of 3 coats in a day, and at 80 degrees it'll sort of dry enough to put the next coat on within an hour, but it's going to take me more than an hour to go around the whole boat anyway, so I can just sort of keep going round, hopefully. I mean, there are bits I have to tread on, so it does need to be, you know, just not tacky. It needs to be good enough that I can sort of move around just about, so it might be sort of a couple of hours. But yeah, if I can get 3 coats of this on today, that's brilliant. You can then just put 1 coat on after another. You don't have to sand in between with this varnish, which is a real plus. So a quick fine sand to take off any dust spots and hairs. I could skip this stage and just put the gleam on top of the primer, as it's only been about 12 hours and you're allowed to overcoat without sanding when it's not fully hardened. But I think it's best to get the embedded dust off when you can, and that's when it's been left overnight. Do remember as well that all the timings are temperature and humidity dependent. There's a guide on Total Boat's website that seems to be very accurate. Just remember, if the varnish is clogging the paper, it's not dry enough. I did the lift out panels with the orbital with 120 grit. So primer done, it's on to the actual varnish. So is that a good stir? I felt a few solids on the bottom of that, so giving it a good go. There's no lumps or anything in it, so I don't think I need to strain it. I'm going to use the small roller, be a little bit careful with this one. It looks pretty thin. I don't think I need to thin this. You can, but I don't think it's necessary in the sort of heat that we've got here. So yeah, comes with that, and I've got my good brush now. Start using this for all the final coats. So top tip, put your small tray inside a larger tray. You will spill some. It's just inevitable, especially with missing floor panels and the companionway ladder. I'll show the varnishing process outside in better light. So it goes in quite nice and quick with the roller. So basically just roll right across it, a little bit onto the edges. And that's it. And then with the brush, just go all that way around. Now with these panels, they're small enough, a little bit more in there, that I can go from edge to edge all the way through. If I have a bigger one, just move that one out of the way. So the roller really is just to get it on there while I'm doing it. So if this was a big floor, I mean, even with this I could go completely from side to side and do it off the edge, but when I'm doing the floor inside, basically I'll go up to the edge, and then the next bit start here and go into the bit you've already done. Just bring the brush up just to sort of feather it off. Just do the edge here, and you can get it done quite nicely. Obviously you want the final brush stroke to be with the grain. There wasn't too much in the way of fumes with the gleam varnish. I did wear my respirator in the forward cabin because there's not much ventilation there, but I actually found it was okay elsewhere. Tip 2, when not in use, hang the good brush in thinners, don't leave it sat on the bottom. And I also try to leave it submerged in the varnish when I'm going between roller and brush. Just those few minutes left in the air every time begins to dry it out otherwise. So that's it done. 7 coats all done in 2 days. If you're tackling this job though, be aware the prep is what takes the time. In good weather conditions with a good varnish you can work remarkably quickly. So try to get a good weather window and do pick a good varnish. I thoroughly recommend Total Boat's Gleam Varnish, so I'll put a link in the description, which should also give you a small discount. Do remember to like and subscribe or join our Patreon group.